All right, guys. Again, Trent Ellingford here from REKI Real Estate Knowledge Institute. Of course, here with John Troutman, and we're also joined with strategic partners of ours, Rick Melero from his capital, and Sam Alley. Like always, I'm sure we're going to have people kind of jump on, but we appreciate you being on time. And so we're going to go ahead and begin. I think most of you are pretty familiar with his capital and some of the things that Rick is doing. I know that several members of REKI have reached out to them for lending on different projects of theirs. And we've also spent some time in the past talking a little bit about the fund and some of the projects that we as a company are working on, and look forward to working in tandem with Rick and his team and some of the things that they're doing. So we're going to dive into that and share with each of you how, if you choose to, maybe it's a fit for you to get involved in some larger projects and diversify and generate some passive income backed by real estate. So I'm just going to kind of pass the mic for just a second to John and let him talk for a minute, and then Rick will jump into this and kind of walk you through some of the things that we're doing.
Yeah, thanks you guys for having me on. I appreciate it, Rick. Thank you for setting time aside, and Sam, you as well. I'm excited to have you guys here helping and working with us. Obviously, you've helped myself and a lot of other students get going and helping fund their deals, and you guys are very active in our community. So thank you, and thanks for setting time aside. I think this is a great opportunity for people to learn more about you guys and how you guys lend, and that you're actual investors that kind of got into, not kind of, you guys are investors, fixing flips and doing all that, and then morphed into more helping people with the funding and things like that. One of those biggest pain points that people have. So I appreciate, again, that you're here, that you're spending time with us and educating our, team members, if you will. And, yeah, I'll give it to you. The floor is yours. And if you wouldn't mind going through and explaining what you guys do a little bit more, that would be great.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here, guys. Thank you for having me again. So yeah, for those that don't know who I am, my name is Rick Melero. I am one of the principals of His Capital, which is a real estate investment company. We started out initially in the wholesale business because we didn't have the money to actually do any business ourselves. And just over time, we just kept challenging ourselves. How can we do better? How do we grow? How do we expand? And so over the years, our business has literally crossed multiple spectrums of real estate, from residential, commercial, fix and flip, rental, and private lending as well. And so we're really excited. I think today we're going to talk about a really powerful strategy that we're implementing that not only helps our company grow, but it helps investors like you to really participate in some deals that otherwise would be almost out of reach for you. So I'm really excited about that. And also to mention in a few, we'll talk about how in the world we are putting His and John and Trent into the mix so that you guys can benefit from everybody who's putting all the effort together and leveraging our skills to do so. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Before I typically begin, since we are going to talk about a fund, I have to give you this incredibly beautiful disclaimer that I hope you can read in the next 20 seconds. Otherwise, you'll have to do the replay. But no, really, all joking aside, what we're going to try to do today is incorporate education and marry it with an actual investment platform that allows you guys to truly implement the strategy almost immediately and be a part of it. So the first thing that I'd like to do, though, is I want to begin. I like teaching when we talk about investments because I really believe that it's all about sowing seeds in order to reap a harvest. And over the last year and a half, I think we've been in several webinars with you guys and across the spectrum talking to a variety of different investors. And last year was a very tough year for most people. They were afraid, they didn't know what to do. And so I want to just reframe 2021 for all of us so that we could really transition and dominate instead of get dominated by what's going on in the market. And so I'd like to begin by sharing with you a story that I thought was really powerful. There was actually several years ago an actual study that was being done on environment and actual twins living in the same environment and what makes a difference between their lifestyle when they get older. And what was interesting is this scientist was actually studying and dealing with the science aspect and the psychology aspect of these particular brothers. What was really unique about this particular case is that in most cases, whenever she dealt with an actual set of twins that were raised under specific conditions, most of them, for the most part, ended up having a very similar upbringing, right? And then most of them ultimately had a very similar growth over the years. And so what made this uniquely different than most cases was that these two twin brothers, as they grew up, they were in the same environment. In a minute, I'll talk about just how badly they were abused during their upbringing. But what's totally different is that one of them was an absolute success in business, was wealthy, had reached complete heights that most people never imagined were possible for him. And yet his twin brother, who had the same upbringing, had the same opportunities, actually was a complete failure, meaning was arrested, DUIs, you name it. And so this case was very intriguing for the scientists. And so when they started asking questions, they were learning more about the conditions. Tell me more about your situation. And so she started, of course, with the bad case, right? The brother that was a failure to all world standards. And she started asking questions about his upbringing. And he said, listen, at an early age, as early as I can remember, around 6 years of age, I recall when my father first started abusing us. He started drinking to the point that we literally broke bones over the years. He beat our mom. It was a horrible environment to be in. I couldn't wait to leave. And so as, of course, the scientist is asking these questions and she's trying to get the psychology behind it now, she's like, well, why do you feel that you've almost repeated the sins of your father? And he says, honestly, because my father abused me. I just, that's all I know. That's my life. And so when they ended the interview, she had a lot of notes and was actually saddened by the fact that this poor man had accepted defeat before he even grew up. So then intrigued, she says, I'm going to interview this gentleman and I'm going to find out why the brother is totally different. And so she started asking him questions, and sure enough, he says, yes, we had a really tough upbringing. My father broke bones. He beat our mother. And that's what it is. That's what we dealt with as we were growing up. And he just started saying things like this, I was actually just blessed that we made it through. I was blessed that we had the opportunity to have a mom that loved us and be there through those times. And towards the very end of the interview, she was completely shocked because here are two twin brothers experiencing the same exact conditions in life. One of them has a positive spin, the other one's a negative. So she said, intrigued at the end, hey, thank you for answering all my questions, but I just have one last question. Why do you feel that you have completely become an amazing success and defied the odds to the world standards? What do you think made you different? And he looked at her in the eyes with tears in his eyes and he says, ma'am, the reason why I'm a success today is because my father abused me. He beat us. And I made a commitment that I would never be that person. And I committed that I would be the opposite of him. And so what I want you to understand as we transition forward into 2021 is that a word and the meaning of that word completely changes everything. Here you have one brother who accepted defeat, who got abused, and that became the reason why he was a failure. And here you have a brother with the same exact word, I've been abused, but he put a purpose behind that word and it transformed his life. And so I want to share with you a reference before we get started. Here's a scripture verse, and it says, therefore lay aside all filthiness and overflow of wickedness and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. Now, what I mean by implanted word is there's something totally different. A word that has a purpose that you implant in your mind sets a root, and that root begins to grow. And that thought pattern that you develop with that word that has a positive purpose begins to create feelings, right? It's a thought that generates a feeling, that motivates an action, that generates a result. And so I want to challenge you. If you look last year, most people had an implanted word. It was pandemic. It was fear. It was failure. It was unemployment. And they allowed that word to take hold of their mind, and it impacted the actual success that they could have had. Where a small group of people for 2020 looked at it and said, opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to reposition and grow. And most of those companies now are flourishing while others are completely bankrupt. So I want to challenge us for 2021. What is the word that you're implanting in your mind so that you can level up for 2021? So I just want to leave you with that thought for a moment here. Now, some of you might say, well, Rick, what word should I be implanting in my mind? And I'm going to argue that one of those words should be passive income for 2021. Now, the reason why I say that is because, look, I don't attack active investors. These are people that work every day. John is an active investor. I'm an active investor. And there's something fun about chasing the deal and making deals happen. And it's great. But at the end of the day, it's work. And what we need to do as investors is leverage our resources to get to the point that we generate passive income that exceeds the income we make actively so that we become financially free. So 2021, it doesn't matter if you have $10 million in the bank or if you literally have $10,000 in the bank, your thought should be, how do I use the resources that I have to begin to build a passive income stream for 2021? Now, before we say it's impossible, let me give you an example of one of our clients. He's been with us now for over 5 years. He's a great guy. His name is Jeff Ford. Now, Jeff Ford is not an active flipper, okay? He doesn't go out there and, bang a hammer and rehab homes and flip properties. He's actually an insurance sales guy. But what's really interesting is he fell in love with real estate. He started studying real estate, and at a moment, he was even tempted to go out there and do it after he started learning from team members like Trent and John. But what he realized very quickly is that was a very active business, and he was a really good salesman for insurance. So it would actually hurt him long-term if he just stopped everything that he was doing so well to go out there and start flipping homes. So what he did is he made a goal. He said, over the next 10, 15 years, I'm going to save money. I'm going to invest it passively until I exceed my passive income and become financially free. Well, let's fast forward over 5 years. I know I'm only one of his partners, and I can tell you we're managing over 7 figures of his capital. All of that money has been earned from savings, reinvesting passively, and allowing that money to compound over the years. Now, what I find really funny is, here's this guy who loves to ride mountain bikes, which, by the way, professionally, because the guy goes 25 miles on his mountain bike and he averages 14 miles an hour. That's expert level, in my opinion. I can't keep up unless I got like a natural motorcycle with me. But the point I'm trying to make here, guys, is here's a guy that started with a small amount. He was disciplined, he was consistent, and now today he's invested in more projects passively than most active investors who come to me for funding. So that speaks a ton to what you can do. So never underestimate. If you're in the right job, it's not about quitting your job, it's how do you leverage your job to start making that money work for you in real estate long-term so that you too can have financial freedom. So enough about that. Now let's transition into something very important that I believe is critical, because a lot of people will say, well, Rick, that's fantastic, but if I would have started 10 years ago, we'd be fine. The problem is we're going in a growth stage and we might actually have a recession. So what do we do now? So let me give you a picture. One of the things that I want to tell you is you're absolutely right. Because of debt, we will always have in the real estate sector actual cycles, and they all have different phases within the cycle, which is really what you're looking in the screen. And while I don't have time to educate you on this and go in detail, we have a ton of content. I'll tell you more about how you can download that information for free from us. But the point that I want to make here, guys, is you're absolutely right. We're in the growth stage right now. But understand that the actual cycle doesn't tell you when to buy. It shows you how to buy within each stage of the cycle. And if you're a smart investor, you can make money on the way up and remain liquid so that when the market crashes, you have the liquidity to make your money as the market goes down. And that's really the thought process that I want you to think. Once again, put a purpose behind that word. It's opportunity. It's not defeat. And that's what we're going to share with you. Now, because we don't have time, I am going to chime something in here for you guys. This is a number that we put in place. I want to give you a full report. That report is going to really talk about specifically what market cycles look like. We're going to talk about the key indicators that you need to be looking at so that you can see, and it'll give you clarity on how that transitions from one phase to the other. Obviously, we don't have time today to really go in depth on that, so I want to make sure that you get access to it. So if you'll do me a favor while we're talking here, just text 833-530-0863 and make sure you put REKI, put your name and email, because it's a huge file, so we're going to have to email it to you. So again, put REKI, put your first name and email, and we'll be able to get that over to you as soon as possible so that you have that information and resource, okay? So now that we understand the cycle, now that we know that it's about how you buy, most people then will ask me and say, Rick, well, here's a key question that I have, and I don't fully understand how we can do this, but please explain to me, what is his doing right now in order to capitalize on the market? So what I'd like to do today is I'm going to share with you specifically, because of time purposes, 3 key strategies that his capital is investing in for 2021 to reposition and dominate in our marketplace. Okay, so we're going to begin with one with our operating partners, of course, here with John Troutman, who's working on this awesome deal. And we call this the work-live strategy. So John, if you could just jump in real quick and start sharing with us how this deal came about, and I'll talk afterwards on how people can be a part of this kind of deal with us.
So yeah, so this is the way that we found this deal is we're just always out there looking, networking, and trying to identify opportunities. And one of the opportunities that we see in the Phoenix market is, we have massive growth in the state. In most places, a lot of states are having it, but they also have a shortage of real estate, single family, multifamily homes. So what we're looking for, and what we started looking for a while back, there's a few opportunities, and this is one of them, in going after office that could be, you know, you look at it, it doesn't technically look so much like an office. It could be a house, could be both. And so we're looking for that zoning. So we identify properties with that proper zoning, and then we've gone after the owners of those and seeing if we could strike a deal. On this particular one, we did. So this is a great area in Phoenix, 7th Avenue in Missouri. It's right next to a Starbucks and a lot of other retail, but it's also next to single family. So that's there's an overlay on it. So it's a simple permit use, we don't have to go through and do hearings and all these things for the rezoning. It's already in the zoning. So ultimately what we after we identify a property that would work, we negotiate a deal. And so that's what we did on this particular one. We went in, negotiated. This is 5 units. They were 5 separate businesses in it. It's been a little bit, I would say, the deferred maintenance. If you look at this top image versus the bottom image is kind of what we're going for. It will look slightly different than that is what our final is. But ultimately, we start to pull comps in the area. What would this thing rent for? Obviously, with COVID, people are working from their houses now. There's some businesses that, you know, you could get compensated for working out of your house from your business. So what we did is in our due diligence period is we checked validity of, do we actually have a viable product? And I want to share that with everybody, kind of the vetting process. We try to push a couple different scenarios, whether it's just single family multifamily, so just a unit for lease. We do the work live, and then we try to push value to see exactly where it's at. We also get renderings of what it would look like, which is the image down below, and then we do a market test. We got a lot of response, people wanting to put down deposits. And I'll just share those numbers if I could, just real quick, and how we backed into, is this a viable deal or not? So this image is a little deceiving in that where the car pulls in, it's actually got a nice driveway there and then parking in the back, and we're doing a community area in the back as well. But so the purchase price on this property was $580,000. From that, so 5 units on average, we would be at $1,700 per month. They pay their own utilities, and we actually pick up the water, which is not that bad, and obviously taxes, and we do maintenance. So on 5 units, that's $8,500 a month, or 102 annually. We picked it up for like I said, $580. We'll spend on the high end $250 in the renovation. I think we'll be closer to $230 when it's all done, but using the $250 number just in case we run into some unforeseen issues, which we pretty much have it gutted and are putting it back together, so we would have ran into those things already. Conservatively, we're at basically just at a 10 cap on it from our acquisition, our price. Now, if we were going to sell it, you know, there would be about $400,000 in equity going to market at about a 6.5 cap for whatever that's worth. So we feel like this is, we do want to put debt on this and hold this long term. That's the strategy on this. I think it's got great cash flow, so that's another reason why we'd like to. So we take on investors on projects like this. As you know, Rick, often this one, once we put it out there, as you well know, we filled that the funding order very quick within a matter of, I think, a couple weeks. And we have something similar coming up next week as well that we haven't gone to market yet. doing the final negotiations on the price. And that's another Central Phoenix property that I think is going to be a phenomenal asset for us. And if people want to participate, they can. Just, I guess, more to come. I can't really share too much other than it's a property we've been working on. It is not multifamily, it's warehouse, which is a space in Phoenix. It's the number one sought after commercial asset is warehouse at this time, excluding multifamily, obviously. But there's just a lot of businesses moving here. And so warehouse is in high demand. So again, just to kind of recap on the numbers, its gross revenue will projected to be just over 100,000. Net would be closer to 80. With all that said, we will be near a 10 cap on it. 9.6 is our projected. So I think, at 9.6, that's pretty good. I think we'll exceed it. Conservatively, I do think 9.6 though. And then if we were to exit from it, we would be closer to 6.5 cap, which would be in excess of over 400,000 in equity.
Yeah, I love it. And that's one of the cool things. And that's what I was going to say with you guys is, as you guys are learning these strategies, what I like about it is that we're basically taking commercial office and it's evolving. It's evolving into something that you can diversify into multiple units, have a little combination of residential and commercial mixed in. And that really creates a lot of long-term stability. And that's the reason why this is one of the strategies we're looking to invest in for 2021 through our fund, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And John was just alluding to. So if this is something that you would like to be a part of, understand, if you're going to be the active investor, there is a process. John teaches that process on how you build your credibility, find those deals. But some of you might say, listen, I only got $5,000, I only got 20 grand. We'll show you in a minute how you can be a part of it legally with the right structure. So definitely thank you, John, for giving us the backstory behind this deal. We're super excited about it. And we know that, that's the reason why you guys are operating partners with us. We trust your skill. We trust your ability to perform, which is really important that you execute and take this to the next level. And again, this is one of those deals where yes, I sell it, I make a profit, or what can we do to find a way to get permanent financing so we can move on and keep this thing long-term? And so that really is an incredible deal when you're trying to figure out how to keep it forever,
Yeah, I think it's kind of a must. Like, I think just like you posted earlier, like trying to find a strategy where people can participate and stay in the deal, exit from the deal. But at the end of the day, it does create that passive income for us when we're able to hold on to it. And I would say anybody that's looking at like deals like this, whether you want to invest with us and let us take on those day-to-day headaches, or if you're willing to take them on yourself, just take a look, make sure your zoning's there. And I always do right now in this market, I want to see what is the viable product and what's not. And I simply go on and get my designs done from 99 Designs. You can pick any kind of person to do your mock-ups, and then I just test the market. And once you do that, like after a couple ads that you could simply even do on Craigslist, what kind of product and viability you have. Sometimes the phone just blows up and sometimes it doesn't. Maybe you have to switch gears, but typically I think we're on point and understand the area and demographics, and that it's worked out well for us, I guess I should say. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you guys want to learn more, we'll show you later how you can log in and see all the opportunities that you can reserve and be a part of through the fund. So now, John, I'm going to transition now. So what I love about what I do, guys, is this is one of the strategies, but really my favorite strategy that I could literally of all time say is our private whole note banking. And the reason why private whole note banking is so powerful, and I believe 2021 is a part of our key focus, is because it gives us this incredible opportunity as an investment company to really take the business to the next level and scale with mitigating risk. And so what I want to do is I want to take just 1 or 2 minutes here to explain to you what I mean by that, because I call it the spear of our business. Lending allows me to connect with guys like Trent and John, see how well they do, and ultimately want to partner with them when I see they're real. But it also allows me to create an instrument that makes me literally connect with the biggest institutions on the planet. And that's a very, very, very powerful structure. So let me give you an example. This strategy, by the way, I'm using in Fund 2. and it has created so much passive income, and it's really performed for fund too. So we're very excited to be implementing it in our third fund right now, which I'll talk about in a minute. So the whole note banking strategy that we're referring to right now, it's a really important strategy that allows me to deploy capital, reallocate resources with my capital, build the cash flow in between, and everybody makes money. So let me explain how that works. So let's say that in month one, right, we're talking about in the month of January, I have some investors that come in with me, maybe some of you guys that are in the call today. And together we put together $1 million. And we decide that $1 million are specifically set up in such a way that that $1 million is going to be lent to a bunch of other investors. So what I do is I actually put together a portfolio. Let's say, for example, just as John was talking about this particular deal, I say, John, this is $1 million project. I'm going to loan you $1 million today on this project, and you're going to make a payment because you have a great equity position and cash flow. So John agrees, and John says, you know what? Fantastic. I'm going to borrow this money. I'm going to pay interest on it. So for the month of January, I deployed $1 million with John. So now what I do, because we've already grown to a certain level that big institutions want to buy our actual paper, is I go ahead and I sell that paper in the month of February to an institutional partner of mine, and he gives me my $1 million back, which I now have available. But now walking into February, John's payments are paying me a percentage of interest, but now I have $1 million in the bank again to loan it out. So for illustration purposes, let's say I now go and I talk to Trent, and Trent says, Rick, I got another multifamily deal that I'm working on. It's about another $1 million. So then I loan Trent that $1 million in February, structure the deal, vet it out, make sure we're all going to win. Once I loan the money to Trent, and Trent now is the proud owner of a multifamily project that he's stabilizing, I now take that loan and I sell it to the banks. The bank gives me my $1 million again. So now I'm walking into March with literally $1 million that we invested together in. It's in the bank, but now I have $2 million worth of mortgages paying every single month. So now I do that again and again and again. And let's just say that over the course of the 12-month period, I do this 10 times, which means that I've used $1 million 10 times to fund over $10 million worth of real estate deals. Okay, this is called whole note banking. Let me show you how it works. So now let's say that on average, I'm charging a total of 10% annual interest for all these borrowers on those $10 million in deals. That means that every year we're making $1 million in cash flow. But because I sold that mortgage off to the bank is earning 8% annual interest, which is $800,000 a year. And his capital is earning a 2% yield spread for managing the portfolio, and we're making $200,000. But keep this in mind. That means that I have $1 million in the bank and I have $10 million paying me, which means my cut of that $10 million is $200,000 a year. So why is this important? The reason why this model is important, not only is it a solid strategy to make a great return on your money, but if you look at this cycle piece, I believe this is one of the most effective strategies so that you can scale up and do billions of dollars during the growth stage, and you sell off this paper to the big banks. And when the market crashes, you have the money in your bank account ready to transact, and in many cases buy assets from the very people who you were selling the mortgages to, who partnered with other guys that shouldn't have worked with. And so before you know it, we still have cash flow, we have cash, and we can take that cash to buy those assets distressed. Now I'm going to give you an example, because you guys know when COVID hit, a lot of banks stopped. A lot of institutions hit the pause for at least 90 to 120 days. So I not only have talked about this strategy, not only have I been applying it now for almost 6 years, but I kept telling our staff at some point in the near future, there is going to be a sneeze in the market that's going to prove what I'm talking about. And sure enough, no pun intended with the sneeze, when COVID hit, our institutional note buyers that were actually transacting with us immediately called us. I mean, within 30 days, and said, Rick, we have over $200 million in our balance sheet that we need to get rid of right now because you're in a line of credit. It is imperative that we sell these off. Most of these are performing. Some of them are not performing. We're willing to take a discount. So we literally were able to take down some deals, even though we couldn't take them all. And some of those deals, we were buying performing assets at 80 cents on the dollar at performing. And so what I'm trying to tell you guys is the beautiful thing about banking is that we can lend and scale, build great relationships, have cash flow. But when the market drops, we have the liquidity to be the ones buying this stuff back at pennies on the dollar. So we get to ride it up and we get to ride it on the way down. And so this is why I believe this is one of my top picks. And it allows me to grow. It allows me to work with John. and it really gives the investor a solid, balanced investment return, which is what we're shooting for. So again, we want to be active and do deals like we're doing with John, but we definitely want to be incorporating this lending banking strategy, because this is what keeps us making money and liquid, so that when the market shifts, we turn into a more aggressive John during that market crash, okay? Now, that also allows us the ability, in a minute I'll tell you what I mean by being able to do this. It allows us the ability to also invest in a variety of different strategies. So this is what I call a higher risk, higher reward strategy, guys. And in many cases, most of those deals that we do are in the US. In this case, we took a step into Mexico. We went to Tulum as we were vetting this project. This is actually a project offering we're doing right now. In fact, I got a funny joke, John. I was in a rush because I had to send one final deposit before we do the closing. I actually printed it out. So somebody called me, I'm sending the wire, and all of a sudden I look at the screen, and I don't know if you could see it, but it says $3 million. And I'm like, I know that wasn't the amount. Oh my goodness. And I realized it was converting into pesos. So we're good. But anyway, so we're ready to go. In fact, March 15th, we'll close on phase 1 of this project, and I'll talk about it. But what's cool is kind of like what John is saying. Our goal with this land that I'm going to show you in a minute is we buy the land. We're going to build 6 homes on that land. And in a minute, you might even help me to decide what we're going to do with that land. But from there, what we're going to do is sell 4 and keep 2. And those 2 will be short-term rentals, because in this market, the highest and best use of that real estate by the water is a short-term rental. So let me give you an example. So this is the project where it's located. It's a really exclusive area in Tulum. Now, what the pictures you see are our location. We obviously, since we have to do this deal, we have to take a trip there March to do our final due diligence and meet with the contractor. So as you can see, we're going to live it very difficult, like indigenous people. And we're going to be able to do our diligence. So the whole idea is to go here, finish the contracts with the builders. And what's beautiful about this site is that we control about 6 phases. So this is 1 of 6. So if everything works well in this phase, we'll be able to start going to the following and the following phase. And hopefully I can get John convinced and Trent to come with me on the next trip.
You don't have to twist my arm. Just give me the dates.
I'll send you a text in a minute.
Perfect.
So this is our hangout spot for due diligence on March. What was that?
Is that where we're staying?
Yeah, that's the spot. That's exactly the spot that we're staying. Because, you know, it's tough. We got to do a lot of hard work. And so we want to make sure that, you know, we have a place that we can rest and have peace when we are done with all that hard work. So what I want to do now is show you guys a couple options. It's kind of like John said, a lot of times we like to test things out when we're doing our diligence. We're definitely in the final stages. We've got contractors doing scopes of work to build out these homes. But one of the options that we're considering, which is a very popular option in Tulum, is to go with kind of the modern style. It seems to get a pretty solid return as far as short-term rentals. And not only that, we're seeing a lot of retail sales on properties that aren't even as close as we are to the water. Our land is very exclusive in comparison to some of these, and they're selling for a premium. So that's one option. But then the second option we're going to test out looks like this. Because one of the things that makes Tulum unique, which is one of the reasons why we decided to go to this specific market, is totally different than most areas around the world. It's that it's a very naturalistic community. They really believe in not impacting the environment. They really want to make sure that they work and live and enjoy that area. And so they use even some of the materials to build these incredible properties using that same material, the land. And so these almost become like huts, kind of like the place we're going to be staying at. They kind of become little huts. So we're going to get a bid on whether or not we go with the nature aspect of it, or we stick to the modern, or we might do a combination of both. But this just kind of shows you how we're leveraging our business to do all kinds of real estate through one vehicle. And a lot of people can benefit from the deals we're doing with John, projects like this, and so on and so forth. So I guess at the end of the day, what I'm saying for 2021, if you're an investor and you're listening here, is that it's all about balance. You really need to diversify your investment strategy. And so this is the philosophy that we teach all the time. We don't deviate from it. What I tell people is this: it's a 40-40-20. 40% of the assets that everybody should be focused on is appreciating assets. I'm buying something at a discount, I'm going to increase value, and I'm going to make money off of it. And then the question is, when I make a profit, I need to allocate that to cash flow, which is the next bucket, which is income producing assets. We achieve that through rental properties, commercial deals like with John, or lending money to other investors. And then lastly, the higher risk, high reward, which I just showed you a deal like Tulum that has a really, really solid amazing equity potential because we're getting it at a fraction of its value. But it could take longer because we have to build 6 homes. It could take a little bit longer than usual for that. So it is a higher risk as far as we're concerned. So this is the balance that I really want to encourage you guys to consider as investors. Now, I am going to say that when I teach this, about 99.9% of the people who hear this, they come to me, especially after events, before COVID especially, and they'd say, Rick, I 100% agree with you. In fact, deep down in my soul, I know that safety comes in diversity, right? And having the right strategy. But here's the problem. The problem that I have is that I'm not a big boy like John, right? I don't have as much money in my pocket as John has, right? And so the reality is I need big money to truly diversify. And what I'm here to tell you is that over the years, that was a conundrum because let's be honest, like let's shoot straight. If you have $5,000 in the bank in savings that you want to invest, you really can't diversify in an office building or in a project in Tulum or to buy an office building here in Orlando, right? You just don't have the resources to diversify. So to a degree, you're right. Now that shouldn't stop you. You should be focused on a game plan like Jeff did to save money to invest passively. But what we started thinking as a team is, well, what can we do to level the playing field so that an investor that only has 15 grand can still be diversified in a host of deals? And that's when we came up with this operation model called His Capital Fund 3, which John and Trent are operating partners of. So I'm just going to take just 1 minute to explain this. It's very simple. So if you look at the screen here, guys, we went through a 15-month process with the Securities Exchange Commission to put together a syndication entity that is called Reg A+. Okay. What it is that we have an entity called ARC Fund Management owned by aka Rick and the team. And we are responsible for managing this fund. Limited investors come in with as little as $5,000 and they become partners in this entity, governed and managed by a third-party administrator that provides reports to the investors and the Securities Exchange Commission because they want annual audited financials. And what we do is we take that investment and we do it in the form of commercial developments, commercial projects, private lending, residential, and even operating partnerships, which I'm going to allude to in just a minute. What's beneficial about this is whether we're loaning money or whether we're buying assets in the fund, our investors are direct owners of all the assets owned by the fund. Now, what takes it to the next level, and this is why I want to really take this moment to emphasize this, His Capital does not have the time to do every single investment strategy on the planet, right? We're really good at some things, and we know some things are great, but we don't have time nor the staff nor the manpower to do that. So let me give you an example. If I'm going to do a deal in Arizona, why would I send one of my employees from Florida to go all the way out there to find some stuff to compete with John? When John and I have a relationship, he's great at what he does with Trent. So why not make him an operating partner in the fund so that when we lend him money, in some deals we lend, in some deals we have a full equity position. So now our operating partner, John, is managing the investment, doing what he does best with that work-live strategy, for example. And we are part owners or lenders in the deal, depending on the project. So whenever the revenue comes in, then the money comes up to the entity investors. And then he gets his cut for running what he does best. And so this operating partnership model really allows his to truly diversify, not only in real estate, but in operators. And that allows us the ability to really strengthen our investments and make sure that our investors, whether they put $2 million or whether they put $5 grand, that they truly benefit from it. So again, I want you to understand that you get to enjoy the benefits, and you can start for as little as $5,000. I'm not joking when I say that. Another thing we found that was interesting, John, is most people that have a self-directed IRA, they struggle with trying to find an investment because they only have 20 or 30 or 40 grand. They can't find anything. So this has been a home run. Most people are like, you know what, 100% of my IRA money that I have, let's put it to work in these projects. I want to be in Tulum. I want to be in Arizona. I want to be in Florida. And so that's what I love about this business model, is that really it's taking his to the next level while we lift up our investors and take them to the next level with us. So what I'd like to do is, Trent, I'm not sure if this link is fully live yet. So if you guys can send the direct link to everybody on this call. What I'd like to do is invite you guys to be a part of this. So I left the domain here for a second. This is a landing system. It's actually our compliance software. It allows investors to log in. I think we just put it in the chat so that you can see everything that we're talking about the fund, the minimum investment, the targeted returns we're looking for. We have several webinars and Q&As that we've addressed in this piece. And what's cool about it is once you sign up and go in there and check it out, whenever John has a deal that we put up there, you'll also be able to see it and click reservation because, again, we're considering investments with John through the fund. And so you'll be able to tell us which deal you're really interested in. So even though you'll be in the fund as an investor, you're giving us input on which deals really make sense for you guys. So I want to encourage you guys to do that. So again, we're putting that on the screen here for you, and we're sending to you in the chat box. We want to encourage you guys to check that out and sign up so you can get access to any and all deals that we're going to put in that platform. And what's really cool about that is once you sign up, if you do invest, which with just a click of a button, anytime our auditing team produces annual or quarterly reports, it's through this platform that you'll receive it. So everything's in one spot, it's clean, it's simple, and you have all the visibility on all the projects we're doing. Now I'm going to wrap it up with one last story, and then we'll go into the Q&A if you guys want. So towards the end of December in 2020, one of my old friends, we had done business about 10 years ago. He called me and he said, Rick, we just moved into Tampa, and you're one of the crazy guys that I know. You like doing fun things. And so for his birthday, somebody had basically purchased him some tickets to this thing called iFly, which is a place where you can basically skydive inside the building. So of course, who's going to say no? I'm like, I'll go. But it was really my first time going. So what was really cool is when we got there, they had a trainer. And this guy taught us how to get our gear on, and he started explaining to us what to expect when we got into this thing. And so what was really interesting is he said, guys, what I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to forget. So what I want to show you now is what to feel, so that when we get in there, you'll be able to focus on me and learn how to soar. And so he showed us some of these moves of what this means and what that means and how to feel. And he said, at the end of the day, what I want you to do is have your eyes on me, focus on me and relax, and I'll guide you by using these signals. And if you let go, and if you follow through with my instructions, by the time we're done, you're going to be soaring high and you're going to be very confident. And so I was very excited. I said, okay, I can follow that. I'm like, I got to be in the moment. I have to be relaxed. So we get lined up with a few group of people, and I'm thinking, what's the worst that could happen here? I mean, most of these guys are older than me. They're out of shape, right? So I feel like I've got a fighting chance here. I can dominate this, right? Plus, if you don't see in that picture in the background, that's my wife and kids watching me. So there's a little pressure, but it's all good, right? I got
You're
this.
not competitive either, so that's good.
Yeah, right? So, but to make it funny, that's how God does it, man. He humbles you. So here I am, I got this. These old dudes, we're good. My wife's watching. I'm going to show off. My kids are going to see daddy's soaring. And all of a sudden they say, well, we're going to split it up, guys, because there was really 4 of us. But apparently there's an expert that decided to join us. And they said, so what we're going to do is a rotation where we have 2 of you, then the expert, and then 2 of you, and then we'll just keep rotating that way. So I'm like, all right, that's cool. So I get in line, and I'm just thinking, as long as he's not before me, I'm fine, because they'll forget about anyone else. But they're going to see the guy right after him and say, wait a minute, that guy was really good. You suck. Well, sure enough, guess who was in front of me? It was this expert. So here I am. The first 2 guys are just wobbling. Everything the guy said, they completely forgot, right? And here I am judging them like, yeah, you guys are terrible, right? And all of a sudden, this guy shows up, and I kid you not, he's floating in the sky, just doing incredible things, just amazing. And so all of a sudden, I'm seeing this guy upside down and doing these things, and I'm thinking, I'm next. How do I follow this? And so anyway, it's my turn. I get in. I'll go back to this visual. I get into this thing, and immediately, the very thing I was making fun of people on, I was doing myself. And I'm struggling. Finally, I just said, in the moment, look at him. And he looked at me and he just said, relax, just relax. So I relax. He's like, look at me, keep your eyes on me. So I keep my eyes on him. And before I know it, he just said, think growth, think expansion. And when I started doing that, I instantly took off. And we were able to do all kinds of cool tricks, obviously at my level, definitely not like the other guy. But what was really interesting is at the very end, when we were finished, he said, hey, man, you did a really good job. This was your first time. I'm really impressed. You soared. We did all these cool tricks. And so I told him, I said, look, I want to be honest with you. The reason why I even got to that point is because you were a great trainer. You showed me what to feel. You made me focus on you. And I said, you know, what I find interesting is I was dreading going into this wind, this storm. And he's like, Rick, that's the problem with most people in life. The problem they have is when the storm hits, they run from it instead of to it. You see, the reason why I run to the storm is because the storm is my mode of transportation. And so if you can get in the storm and relax, you can leverage the power of the wind and make it your transportation to that next level. And so it really became a life lesson that day for me. And so what I want to challenge you guys is, you might be going through a storm in your life right now, or you might be going to one soon. Don't run from it. Just relax, keep your head on straight, focus, and leverage that storms, because it's going to transport you to that next level. And I hope this is something that sinks in, not only for business, but in your personal life. So with that said, guys, I want to wrap this up. Let's soar this 2021 together. I would love to open it up to any Q&As. And if you want to get more information, please send that text. We'd love to address any comments or questions you guys have. Or John, if you have any additional content to share, I'm happy to go over that with you guys.
I think you did a phenomenal job covering it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Like, what you've put together is incredible for people to plug into and invest and limit their risk for sure. So thank you.